Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Unscripted from my studios, which will soon have a title sponsor that I can't wait to announce. Anyway, let me start at the beginning. So I met this guy that's going to be on today, my guest. We met. It's been a minute. It's been a long time. We met years ago. At one point, we were coworkers, and then I actually worked for him because he was my boss. And then we were both members of the senior leadership team. And then I got riffed. Welcome to corporate America. I got riffed, and then he's been there. Anyway, my guest, why don't you introduce yourself, and we will go from there.
Yeah. Good to see you, Aaron. I'm Paul Hevesy, and I'm glad to be a part of the Unscripted podcast today. So yeah, we've got a lot of history, man. I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about that and all the things that have been going on since you and I last kind of worked together.
You left a lot out there. You're an author.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be real. Like while I was overdoing my thing, you're over there getting your masters and like your ultra masters and your elite masters and your platinum masters or whatever else you can get educationally. Man, you seriously, like, give yourself a little credit. Please tell us, like, you have quite a bit of experience in education. What all is that?
Yeah. So I've spent the last, call it 20 plus years with a company called Stanley Black & Decker, and have done all kinds of things from sales leadership, operations, HR, P&L management, general management, all that kind of thing. Great career and opportunities at Stanley Black & Decker. I'm also, as you mentioned, an author. So I just actually published my first fiction book here this year, actually just within the last couple of weeks. As you know, I also do some speaking, and I'm also an executive coach. So really, I'm trying to, over the last few years, to your point, once I got my MBA about 15 years ago, that opened up some opportunities within the business world, and have done my best to take advantage of all of those over the years. But also, I've thought about those things that I really love to do, and so over the last few years, I've started to invest in that, which is where this book came from, which is where this executive coaching came from. Love the leadership aspect of things. Love coaching and developing others. It's a big kind of part of my heart. And so I've been able to do quite a bit of that over the last few years as well. So yeah, a lot going on. As my wife would say, I have a lot of interests, and that I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, and we're going to talk about the book, I promise you, because that's why that's why we got on today, was to talk about the book. So we will do that. But I gotta praise on you a little bit. So I want to say the first time we met, so we had some history again. Paul mentioned it. We worked for a company called Stanley Black & Decker, which at one point was Stanley, which even before that was Best, because a company called Best got bought by Stanley, which eventually became Stanley Black & Decker, which became, who knows, welcome to the hardware industry. We're lock guys for the rest of our lives.
Yep.
I still, when I go to retail places, look at the door and look at the lock. I still do it. It's ingrained in my life, and it's been there for many years. Anyway, so Paul and I have been through it, but one day I remember they put all of our new sales reps together, and this guy walks in, and man, if anybody probably knows, like, you've been in a room before where there's just people, and then there's someone walks in and the room changes. Like, it's almost like a pot of water on the stove, and then somebody turns the heat up. Like, everything changes a little bit. And the first time I met Paul, he walked in the room and he was moving back to Indianapolis. He just walked in, and everybody was immediately engaged with him and his personality and his energy, which I think you're going to hear in this call, if you haven't already, here on this podcast. this guy's he's got that it factor. So I've always want to tell you that. I probably have told you that before. If not, I'm sorry. Man, he's got this magnetism, if that's a word. I don't have my MBA.
I'll take it. Yeah.
We'll use it now.
Sure.
He's just got this magnetic personality that as soon as he walks in a room, everybody's engaged. And as evidence of the fact that my career with Stanley Black & Decker only lasted, it was an ember. yours was a flame, Paul. Yours was a flame, and it was a long flame until, but at the end of the day, we always knew in a Fortune 500 company, any Fortune 500 company, you're on a list somewhere, and when the cuts come, they come. So anyway, shout out Black & Decker.
And that happened, to be clear, that happened a few weeks ago as of recording this podcast, and that happens. And I've got nothing but great things and great memories and great network and great friends from Stanley Black & Decker. They gave me so many opportunities that I probably had no business having, but I was the one guy standing around saying, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And but yeah, you're exactly right, man. It's unavoidable, mm-hmm. And but from those kinds of things, as you know, in your experience, I'm experiencing right now, I'm living through it. Great things can come from what may be, at least at first, a really difficult situation. God has a way of making all things new and working everything together for good. And I'm living that as we're talking today. I'm living that. Sure. Don't know the end result of that. We never really know the end result of that, or really even the next step of that. But man, it's been fun to watch. So yeah, that has ended. But looking forward to all kinds of things ahead for sure.
And I look forward to the things we're going to probably do together. We just had some pregame before we even click record. You're all just beginning to hear the story, and I'm excited because I've been where you are. I've been when, again, shout out Stanley Black & Decker. They gave me a nice severance. I had 6 months to figure out what I'll be when I grew up. I spent a cup of coffee in ministry, and it really, they gave me honestly, I shook hands with people and they're like, why are you shaking my hand the day I got let go? And I was like, cause thanks. It was a great run, and so shout out to them because they did take care of those of us that they did, let go eventually. So great company. And again, I'm thankful for the opportunity that I met you. So yeah. Okay. So we kind of brought where you are now, dude. Let's talk about the book. Let's take some time and talk about the book. When did you start? I mean, I have a million questions about the book. Let's talk about the book. I love it. Thank you for that. Love this book. I'll show you. I got a copy of it right here. The name of the book, Operation Redemption. It's a fiction book based on, it's a story of 4 warrior angels sent on a very specific mission, sent into the earthly realm to ensure the Creator's plan for redemption is carried out. And that's probably the best way. The other way to say it is they're sent into the earthly realm on a mission to save the world. And so it's actually an idea that I had probably 5+ years ago. And, at the time, I don't know what I was doing 5 years ago. I was probably leading sales for our security business, or what I thought was some big job, some big corporate job. And I told myself several things, and this can apply to anyone listening. Whenever you've had an idea that may be big or different or unique, you tell yourself all kinds of reasons why you can't do it. So I've always wanted to write books. I love the written word. I actually have a degree in speech communication. As you know, you received a lot of my emails over the years, right? That's right. Most of them way too long. I did get better over time in my length of emails, but trying to get my point across. But my point is I love to write. So I had started at this point 5 years ago, started and stopped writing multiple books on leadership and coaching and sales and all that kind of thing, just because after like 2 chapters, I kind of said everything I wanted to say that might have been unique in that space. And I'm like, I just don't want to be like everybody else, the other, 15 million sales books out there. Right. Anyway, so I always thought I was going to write a book. Well, 5 years ago, I have this idea, and it's really kind of a fiction thing. And I said to myself, I can't write a fiction book. I don't know how to write a fiction book. Even if I wrote something, who would edit it?
even if I got somebody to edit it, no one would publish it. And even if somebody published it, no one's going to read it. So I just talked myself out of it, and it lay dormant for a few years. And then the time frame was like end of 2019, early 2020. I had 3 people in my life completely separated from each other, just in my network. We got these networks of people. And at 3 different times at events I was at, each of them said something to the effect of, you should write a book. You ever thought about writing a book? You should write a book. I'm like, you know what? I have this idea. What do you think of this idea? And everybody, all 3 of them, like, oh, you got to do it. And so by the 3rd one, in like a 30-day period, I thought to myself, it can't be a coincidence. And the 3rd person that actually said it had written books before. So she knew the process. And so my question to her, I said 2 things. I said, first of all, you're the 3rd person in less than a month to say that to me. Second of all, since I know you've written books before, do I have to outline this whole book? Because all I have is an idea. Do I have to outline it, or should I just start writing? She's like, no. So this is actually the key that picked this lock, which was, hey, you don't have to outline it. She said, I've started books based on a character. I've started books based on a scene. She said, the only time I really outline anything with it, and this actually became true for me with my book, is toward the end when you got to like land it. You got to like end it. Maybe you kind of outline the last few, scenes or stages of the book. So that was kind of the thing that pivoted for me. So my commitment, I finally said, okay, I'll do it. At the time, I didn't think it all the way through, but I'm like, obviously God wants me to do this I'm not sure why, but I'll follow that leading. And so I said, I'm going to take 30 minutes a day. This is early 2020. Said, hey, I'm going to take 30 minutes a day, and I'm going to start. And I figured it might last a week, maybe 2 weeks. And a year later, I'm still writing, man. In case anyone's wondering, the first thing that I did is, and this is again really important, I just started. My wife has a laptop, and I used her laptop. And for the first 30 minutes, that first time I sat down, I actually wrote out the idea, because until then it'd just been this idea in my head. Ended up being 4 or 5 paragraphs. And then the rest of that 30 minutes, I just titled scenes that I thought would be in the book, right? And I think I probably ended up that first time with maybe 30, 35 titles of scenes. That was it. That was the first 30 minutes. And then every time I sat down, I took one of those scenes and I just started writing the scene. What would the scene look like? What would the characters be saying to each other? And then over time, characters started to develop a little bit. Again, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like this isn't like, oh, character development. Well, I learned that in whatever class. I didn't know. So I just kept going. And then if I had this scene, I realized, well, I need another scene to kind of complement that scene. And so, the book ends up being 150 plus scenes, basically, not that many chapters, but, like trying to tie it all together. And so I'm a year in, and all of a sudden I'm like, man, I got a real book. Like this is happening. And so then I start thinking, then I stop again, right? And the reason I stop, Aaron, is because I'm getting close to kind of the end of final sequence, the final kind of, I won't give it away, but there's a final battle in this book. And so what I've got to do, or trying to do, is weave in, a lot of these threads that I've written throughout the book. Kind of they all, a good ending of a book kind of ties a lot of that together. And that was hard. It was hard. And I ended up doing it as hard, but I talked myself out of it because I'm like, oh, that's so hard, man. I don't know if I can do that. And then it started coming in. Yes, not only is that hard and you don't want to finish it because it's too hard, even if you do finish it, then you have to start thinking about all the things you thought about before, which is like, who's going to edit it? Who's going to publish it? All that kind of stuff. So I stopped, man. I stopped for like 2 weeks. Wow. And then I remember thinking to myself, are you serious right now? Like, you've got a year, 80,000 words, a year's worth of writing, and you're just going to stop? Come on. Yeah. So I guilted myself into it. I'm like, nope, I'm doing it. I'm going to finish it, and we're just going to figure it out. So anyway, finished it. And through a series of connections, actually my mom, obviously, hopefully your mom is your biggest fan. She's my biggest fan, my mom and dad. Well, my mom knows a one of her friends had published a couple of books years ago, and she just said, "Hey, my son's writing a book. Do you have do you have some publishers he can reach out to?" So she sent me 2 publishers. I send out 2 emails. Within a day, I get a response back from one of the publishers saying, "We love this book. We want to talk about publishing it for you." Right?
Wow.
So,
Awesome.
and that's not me. That's that's all the things. And by the way, they help me edit it, and we can talk about that process as well. But the point is, Aaron, as I look back on it, all the things that I was worried about, God took care of. Yeah. God in his sovereignty, like I'm worried about it. And he's like, really? Right. Worried about that? You're worried about a publisher? I own all the publishers. I own everything, including the publishers. If I want your book published, it's going to get published. And so all the things all the obstacles I set up, he just flicked away. And it was a wonderful process, man. Wonderful process. And so I signed that agreement with the publisher a year ago in August. And here we are, we're recording this here in September of 2022. Took that long to edit, which is fine. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I wanted to take time, make sure I got it right, make sure the book flowed the right way, all that kind of stuff. Cover design, all that kind of stuff goes back and forth and, whatever. So anyway, it's out and it's been a great journey.
Have you ever read, man, there's so much you said in there. Have you ever read This Present Darkness by Frank Peretti?
Oh, yeah. So I think it's 2 or 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. He had another one called Piercing the Darkness, and there was rumors they were going to make a movie at some point out of it. I don't know if that ever happened. But anyway, I didn't read it in college. I was supposed to read it for a class, and I didn't. And then I graduated, and I was bored. I was sitting around. This before Netflix when you could, binge watch stuff. So I'm like, I got this one book, and I pulled it out and I read it, and it was amazing. It was the most amazing book. And honestly, to this day, because it talked about spiritual warfare and it talked about the talons of the things that we can't see that were dug into people. Those are the things I really took away from it. Is this book similar to that in terms of spiritual warfare, or what is that kind of what we're talking about?
No, I love it. Yeah. And Frank Peretti's books are amazing. And definitely influential because I read them as well years ago, and definitely influential in the idea of this spiritual warfare that, that's happening all around us that we don't see. Mm-hmm. This story, it's similar in that he went into a lot more detail. My book is told from the perspective of the angels.
Okay.
And so it's not a story about angels. It's a story of angels told from their perspective. And
amazing. Yeah.
The hook of the book, if there is one, which I tried to write, is their mission is to protect a very, very important person, pivotal person in the story of the Creator's redemption, but they have to stay hidden. Because the idea is if Lucifer and his demons, I call them fallens in this book, if the fallens figure out who this very important person is before the appointed time, it could kind of throw the whole thing off. That's kind of the way I've written it. So these bad ass warrior angels that were created to wage war can't, they have to stay hidden. And there's an appointed time for everything. Well, in this book, there is an appointed time for them to wage war. It's just not throughout most of the book. And so that's kind of the tension that I've tried to write in there, where these angels are like, and again, oftentimes we're sent to go do things by God, and we don't know the reasons, right? We don't know all the why. And so, and this is actually an example of that. He wanted me to write this book. This is his book. Obviously it's not Holy Writ. It's his book. He gave me the idea. He gave me the words, that whole thing. For what? I don't know. I mean, I've already got feedback from people that have bought it and read it, that it's been really, really impactful for them. And they're sharing it with other people that they think would really appreciate it. And so who knows? Maybe it's for one person to get this book for one reason that God had for that person. And if that's it, great. Then it's mission accomplished, right? Right. But I say all that to say that the angels don't know all the whys of the mission, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know who this person is. They don't know why they're protecting this person, all that kind of stuff. They just know, protect this person. And the idea is not just protect them from the evil in the earthly realm, the evil spirits in the earthly realm, but protect them from what essentially free will and sin create in a fallen world, right? So,
Wow.
As you know, accidents happen.
Right.
Bad things happen to good people, and so the idea is, hey, the earth is fallen, humanity is fallen. There's a very important person that's part of the Creator's plan for redemption, and if this person, dies unexpectedly by accident in the earthly realm, it kind of throws off the whole plan. Now, as a side note, God is sovereign. It's why I call it fiction. I believe God is sovereign. He's in control of everything. So it's not like anything's going to take God by surprise. But the idea is that's how I've written that story. This person's very important. So it's told from the angel's perspective. And then it's also told from the demon's perspective. So it's a bit of this cloak and dagger story where, the angels are active within this region within the earthly realm, and the prince of that region can't figure out, like, he knows something's going on, but they're so stealth and they're so good as warriors that and over time fallens show up missing, and it just frustrates him more what's happening. So I love the book. Obviously I could talk about it forever. I love the book. I love how it kind of unfolds. Character development's kind of cool. You get to know these angels, and actually I tell previous stories. So two parts of the book. One is the warriors, which is actually I tell stories from their perspective of previous missions that they were on, as a way to kind of help the reader identify the type of character and personality these angels have. And then the rest of the story is the mission, where they form up, create this warrior team, and go into the earthly realm to save the world.
Hey everyone, my name is Cami Pranel and I'm the Executive Director for My Unscripted. We hope you are enjoying today's interview. My Unscripted is dedicated to helping others find their voice, passion, and follow their dreams. Our team can help create websites, apps, YouTube channels, podcasts, media, and social content. Whatever your passion and vision, we can help. Our good friend Manny Ahome of Samaritan's Feet once said, "Make sure your dreams and goals are big enough to create room for others to join you." We've created room for you to join us too. Find out more at myunscripted.com. Now let's join Aaron for the second half of today's interview.
Let me ask you this. We live in a crazy time, and it's getting crazier by the minute. And I think a lot of us really are reading the signs from a book that is actually nonfiction. It's true if you're a believer, and we are seeing the signs. And I'm sure many generations have said the same thing, that there was going to be a date, and everybody thought the rapture was coming. But I think we're seeing, especially Revelation, play out today in a very real and true and clear way. Like, it could not be more obvious. As you were writing this book, did that play into it with obviously current events may not be in the book, but as you're seeing the world play out in front of you, did that help? Or as you wrote, was that helpful to see pieces that are currently taking place in real life also help as you were writing the book?
Well, I don't think it's an accident that I spent most of the time writing this book when the world had lost its mind. Right.
During the pandemic then.
Yeah, through all that stuff, and I'm just just super frustrated of all the actions and stuff the government took to, all that kind of stuff. So I think but I was also very vocal in, kind of my local community and with our church that this was the last few years was the time for the church to rise up, because people are looking for hope.
Absolutely.
And so, I spoke my mind, especially with our, local church leaders, like, hey, we got to be open. We got to be, the church has to be a place of hope. And so not necessarily the end of the world stuff, influence, but I wholeheartedly agree with your statements. But I wanted to write a story that people could, in a way, escape all the things the world tells us to focus on, right? All the wars and the pestilence and the headlines and the doom and the gloom. And reality is there's a great hope out there, and there's a there is a spiritual world, and there is a battle going on, and good wins. It's not like this yin and yang and who's going to win. I'm not sure. God wins. Right. It's not, God, the end. God flicked Lucifer out of heaven. It wasn't like this, it was like, oh, really? Okay. Flick, you're gone. It's, a lot of people think it's just like, battle back. God wins. God's in control of everything. Satan's just a one of his minions. So, but to your point, I wanted an antidote a bit to this. And I kept thinking, and I actually just read again this morning. I had some time with one of my friends yesterday, and the Galatians 5:22 has been on my mind for a while now. But the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are, and against such things, there is no law. We don't have to like constrain those. More love, more joy, more peace, more patience, more goodness, in the world. And so I had that in mind where I'm like, I want people to focus on some good things, and a spoiler alert, this book ends and good wins. In this, at the end of this book, and there's a second one coming that kind of carries that on. But in that process, there's a lot of bad that can happen. But that's what informed me. Like, there's too much doom and gloom in the world. I want to tell a story that's uplifting, that's hopeful, that people can think beyond just the headlines and like be thinking, hey, is there something beyond here? And by the way, I've been a believer for a long, long time. And so it's easy to write a book that's like inside baseball for Christians, Right. And so there is, now, if you're a believer and you have an understanding of that spirit world, even though it's a very dim understanding because we don't really, the Bible speaks of it, but we don't have a clear understanding of it. But there definitely is a spirit world that's doing battle on our behalf. But I tried to write it in a way that even non-believers who pick it up can have hopefully will get them thinking. They can still enjoy the book. They can still follow the book. There's not so much inside jargon or inside baseball that they can't follow. Hopefully it's a great story for even non-believers to embrace. But ultimately, my hope is that they can see, it starts getting them thinking beyond.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Where do we find it? Because we got a couple more things, and I think we're probably going to repeat your URL quite often, but where do they find the book? Is it Amazon? Is it Barnes & Noble? Where do they find the book?
Yeah. So Amazon and Barnes & Noble for sure. You can just search Operation Redemption, and then even my name, Paul Hevesy. That's probably the best way to get it. There's 1 million books on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And then you can also get it if you want a personalized signed copy from me, from this guy. I've actually set up a Shopify account where you can do that. And the way to get to that, best way to get to that is just to go to paulhevesy.com and then just click on my author page, and you'll click through to my Shopify account, and I'll personalize it and send a copy to you. I'm good either way. Obviously on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, the more good reviews you get, the better off things are. But at this point, I just want to get the book into hands of people that want it. And so there's a couple ways to do that.
Well, having because we've been in the same position and we've gone through it, my guess is, because anyone listening, my guess is the best way is probably through your Shopify. So go to the website, buy it on Shopify, and then when you get it and you read it and you love it, go to Amazon and leave a review. Is that the path? Is that the best path?
You can't leave. I love that path, but I don't think you can leave a review on Amazon unless you buy it.
Okay.
So I'll add an additional step. When you said you buy it from me, signed copy, personalized from me, you read it, you love it, go to Amazon, buy another copy for a friend, then you can leave a review.
I love it.
And by the way, I mean, this is not an opportunity for me to be a millionaire. That's not what this is about, right?
Yeah,
so when I talk about
rich off of it, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. But also it's an opportunity for people to invest a little bit, and hopefully it's a great story that that people appreciate.
Absolutely. All right. You have been, anyone listening, I have a feeling you understand now how this guy walked in the room and lit it all up. Now you understand what I was talking about before we started talking about that. You get it. Like, he's got energy, he's got enthusiasm. So you do a few other things. Again, back to your website, you do coaching and you do public speaking. So let's talk a little bit about those, not to get off of the book, but there's other things that you do, because this is where you're at. So when again, I'll go back to it. When I left, when I was given my papers at our former employer,
I now know what that feels like, by the way. I now know what that feels like, by the way.
It's both scary and energizing. And again, shout out to that employer, because they gave me 6 months and a lot of time and compensation to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I went into ministry, and I loved my time in ministry, but I figured out that wasn't for me. And so I had more time to figure those things out. So eventually, you kind of land where you want to be. So that's where you're at right now. But I think you're clearly following the lanes where God has purposed you, both as an author, as a speaker, and those things. So let's talk about that. Public speaking and also coaching. Obviously, we've heard your enthusiasm. What are those things that people can also bring you in for?
Yeah. So couple of things. So I spent, as you know, a ton of time leading teams and building culture. Mm-hmm. And so when you go to my website, paulhevesy.com, you click on speaker, you'll see some of the kind of the areas that I typically speak on around that. I just gave a speech down in Texas a couple months ago at a conference, 7 things to do to be a better boss, super practical things. I actually shared those over time on LinkedIn as well. One thing people will learn about me is if you invite me in to speak, you're going to walk away with 1 or 2 things that you can do right away. Right. I'm not going to sit up at, 50,000 foot view and talk about how this leadership principle and that leadership principle. I'm going to share some of that, but then I'm going to give you some very practical things that you can do every day. So, for example, one of the things I'm probably most passionate about when it comes to leadership is sales managers. That sales manager. So if you're listening, you got a group of sales managers and half of them you actually promoted because they were your best salespeople. And now you're wondering why they're not great as a sales manager. Invite me in. I'd love to share some time, not only from a speaking aspect, but also from a coaching aspect. I've lived that life. I've managed teams. I've managed managers. I know what it's like. I've made probably all the mistakes and then some. But I've learned some things along the way that very practically. So if you've got a sales leadership or sales management team that you want to take next level, I can help with that in very practical ways. If you are a leader that has just taken a big role, or you're a first-time leader, or you're a first-time president or CEO, and you need somebody to come alongside you, help you understand in kind of real-world terms your strengths and your weaknesses, and how specifically tools that you can do to shore up those weaknesses. Because I really believe for coaches, the best thing we can do is help people identify their weaknesses, shore up those weaknesses, because typically it's those weaknesses that are holding leaders back. Right. It's your skills. What I say, your skills have gotten you this far. It's your weaknesses or your negative behaviors that are holding you back. Yeah. Let's get super self-aware. Let's identify those and walk you through how to shore those up. And in that process, become an even better leader. So anybody listening that just took a next step or took a next big step, that's where I can come in and help. So typically a 12-week or 12-session process, very structured, and you walk away hopefully with some real practical tools on being a better leader.
So I'll say this. As I said, I'll keep referring back to it. So my time with our Fortune 500 company was, so I was like that rookie that got called up, and honestly, I went from A to the majors. I skipped AA, AAA, and Paul, meanwhile, was out there just grinding and making his way single A, double A, triple A, and then to the majors. And so we hit the majors about the same time. I had a flash of pan. I had like a 3-year career where I did okay, but I was expendable. And so when the contract, I'm trying to make this practical as possible. When the contract talks come up, I got let go. But there was this seasoned veteran who, like yourself, who lasted and had an amazing major league career. And so if from a real world perspective, if you're not familiar with the Fortune 500 culture, understand that we're talking to a guy that just had a Tom Brady-like career in Fortune 500. He's been there. He's seasoned. He's done that. He knows, especially with all due respect to our former employer, it was a very volatile industry. It was constantly changing, man. So much change over the last few years. From the time I started with this little family-owned company called Best in 1992 to where they are today, that's a whole nother podcast, Paul. Like how many changes and moves have happened in acquisitions and downsize and upsize, and dude, there's so much that none of us outside the locked industry would understand, but it doesn't matter. Insert any company USA into that. And most companies have been through that. And yet you weathered all that. And the reason why I'm saying all that is because the guys that get it, the guys that inspire, the guys that motivate, the guys that know how to lead, make it through that transition. And you weathered, you were really a buoy in the middle of some very rough waters for many, many years. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, shout out to you. And again, I want to also support the fact that you really do know what you're talking about. So when you talk about coaching, you've been there, you've been at the highest level, you've played in the majors, what I mean? So when somebody tells you how to hit 300 in the majors, you're going to listen because they did it for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? I think that's your career in Fortune 500.
No, I appreciate that. And that's right. And I think you mentioned the change thing. I mean, there's a lot of change going on, and, change continues to accelerate. And I, to your point, found a way to thrive in that environment. So people that are looking, hey, I got major changes. I just got handed this new team. I just got, whatever. I can help. I can come in and there's a lot of change specialists out there that have all the, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's wonderful. Have all the certifications around change management, and that's a up and coming industry and everything. And those are great. I don't have any of those. I just lived it and figured out, especially in a very chaotic environment. Hey, here's your new role. Here's your new team. We're not telling you where we're going because we don't really know where we're going. So just go figure it out. If you're in those situations, I've been in multiple of those, and I can help you navigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, I'm so thankful, and I shared this with you in the pregame. I'm so thankful for my time in that organization because I met people like you and Nick, our director of web development, who is just an absolute MVP for our team. Nothing's ever lost. You know what I mean? And I know people lose organizations or leave organizations, get fired from organizations, get riffed. Nothing's ever lost. And even if it's, I don't know how many years it's been, 10 years. We won't say how many years it's been because we're both wearing readers. But at the end of the Fact. It's true. Yeah. Seriously, we're both wearing readers. If you're listening on audio, we are literally both wearing our readers. It's been that long, but at the end of the day, what I'm thankful for is even if it's been 5 minutes, 5 years, 5 days, 5 weeks, however long, it all comes back. And so you always treated everyone with kindness, respect, joy, all the things that you just talked about a little while ago. You treat people that way. And I'm telling you, if you do that long enough, man, it all comes back. So I'm thankful that you and I are on this call and this podcast right now, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, honored as well. And you know what, Aaron, is so amazing. I actually took a few weeks and really, communicated what happened to me and my job, to people, close to me, kind of in my close network. But I didn't put anything out on LinkedIn or anything for a while, for a few weeks, just because I just wanted to process it the right way and not say something I shouldn't and that kind of thing. And
sure.
Anyway, I ended up putting something out just a few weeks ago. And I tell you, I can't remember a single monthly number that I hit or didn't hit, or quarterly number that I hit or didn't hit. I can't remember our OM percentage in any given month or quarter. Okay, I don't remember any of that. And by the way, none of that responded to my LinkedIn post. The 3Q 2017 results didn't chime in on LinkedIn and say, hey, Paul, great job in 3Q 2017. Great job hitting the number. But you know who did? Hundreds and hundreds of people, that many of them said, hey, I'm a better leader because of you. I'm a better person because of you. I loved our time together. All that kind of stuff, which is a reflection of God's gifts to me and his blessings to me and his light through me. It's all him. That all goes to him because it's all started with him and it all ends with him. But in that process, what a wonderful gift and reminder that it's the people that you meet.
Absolutely.
And it's how you treat them. And when you make mistakes, having the humility to say, hey, I goofed that up. Will you forgive me? And I did that a bunch of times. But all of that comes back to all the wonderful career and all that kind of stuff. But it was the people that you meet and the connections that you have make all the difference. And here we are, 10 years on or whatever since you left. And it's like we never left because we're connected in a bunch of different ways. And that's what, in the world today, that's what's missing. Everybody wants to have an opinion that's different than everybody else's and take offense to their opinion or whatever. You know what? Everybody should just go out and, let's just go get a milkshake. Like, let's just sit down and talk and not talk about any of that stuff. Let's talk about our families. Let's talk about love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness. Let's talk about what it means to be faithful and a faithful friend like you. You've been a faithful friend, even though we didn't talk every week.
That's right.
But the faithfulness is just a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful gift to give to other people. And I just, that the world needs more of that. And you're demonstrating that with me and that the people make all the difference. It's so trite. It's probably on some meme somewhere or somebody's selling it at a gift shop. Pinterest. People make all the difference. Yeah, Pinterest, exactly. But that is, if one thing has brought focus of what happened to me a few weeks back, is the impact that I was able to have on a lot of people. And that I cannot put a dollar amount on that. I can't put a value on that. That's like that echoes into eternity, Right. So wonderful thing.
So funny because this morning I literally just said those exact words to my wife. We had a partner that I worked with at a former employer, and they're now a partner of ours. And that partnership was born out of relationship. And yesterday she called me because she was mentoring someone, and they're moving to Columbus, and I don't want to go into details. Anyway, they reached me on a personal level, I think is the point. Not business. We weren't talking dollars and cents and where's my check and how many ROI did I get. Like we weren't talking any of that. We were talking on a personal level. Yeah. And it was really cool because that's what I told my wife is it's so much bigger than, the check's great. The sponsorship's great. Yeah. Love our partners, love everyone that comes across and supports us. But man, if I can make a connection on a personal level, because honestly, I'm going to die one day and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I would much rather have, I guess I'd much rather have that person in my circle of influence and hopefully maybe even at my funeral. This is going to be very dark, but I'd rather have them at my funeral talking to other people about how I impacted their life than have their logo on my website.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever said that before, but that's the truth. I really don't care. Like the logo is awesome and I love the ROI and I love because we have to do that to pay our bills, right? We got to take care of our families, but ultimately I really would much rather have them telling people that our connection in our life mattered and yours has mattered to me. So man, I'm so thankful for our time. Thankful for you.
Thankful for our time here as well, man. What an honor to be with you and it is fun. And there's so much more we can talk about, man. I'd love to talk about let's do it again. Lessons learned in being a bad manager or whatever. Like there's so much to share, but man, what an honor to be a part of this. Thank you for allowing me to share about my book as well and that journey. I probably talked too much about that, but man, I love it. It's part of you. Yeah. It's like personal now. So I appreciate you the opportunity not only share that, but be a part of what you're doing as well. And I'm looking forward to the future, man. There's no doubt.
You've been a huge supporter, and I know you got to go groom your dogs. That sounded gross. You have to go take your dog to the groomer.
Yes.
Because you are now Mr. Mom. So, and figure out 220 or 221, whatever it takes. Last time, what's the domain, Paul?
Yeah. You can find everything out about me. PaulHevesy.com. You can get to the book there. You can get to my coaching website from there. You can reach out to me directly from there. And PaulHevesy.com. That's the place.
PaulHevesy.com. I know you got to go. Love you, brother. Thanks so much for your support of us. And I look forward to supporting you in everything that you're going to do now in the future. Honestly, your best days are ahead of you. You had some great run, but man, your best days are ahead of you. I believe it.
Well, I love you too, brother, for sure. And I'll leave this with you. One of the things I shared on my going away email.
Yes. So I meant to mention that because it was excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was, I appreciate that. It was, it definitely from the heart, and one of the things I shared as I posted that on LinkedIn specifically is just reminded everybody that just what you said, the best is yet to come, is always yet to come, always. Right. Yep. So no matter what's happened to you, no matter what mistakes you've been, no matter where you think you are, doesn't matter. There's always tomorrow. There's always the best is always yet to come.
Yep.
And I believe that not only, because I've got because of God's grace and an eternal view of that. But even if you don't, even if you're not there on your spiritual journey, it's always ahead. The best is always ahead. So remember that. And I remind myself of that every day as well. So Absolutely. Thank you for that.
All right, brother, get those dogs to the groomer. Love you, man.
All right, man. Love you too. See you. Thanks.
See you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Unscripted podcast with your host, Aaron Conrad. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll see you next time on Unscripted with Aaron Conrad.